Good evening, Groove here, and this is 7 Days to Die. I figured the first episode of this game I would do a tutorial. I'm going to try and keep the episodes pretty short, so it's easy to just pick up and watch a video rather than hour-long videos. I can be a bit of a talker, so I might go off track. I'll try and keep that under control whilst I go through this. So when you set up the game, this is your main menu. Go into options. Create yourself a profile, so you've got your own custom avatar. It will be covered over by your clothes and your armor, and you can dye all your armor and clothes, so don't get too hung up on what you look like, just give yourself a general character. These are the video settings that I'm using. I have a fairly new machine, so I have maxed everything out on it. One thing I do point out is that the UMA texture from Alpha 15 or something, there have been forum posts about turning that right down because that can affect your frame rate. So yeah, I've got everything else turned up. UI, I have turned the music off, so that should hopefully not interrupt too much with what we go through here. Set your controls as you would normally. So we'll start up a new game. These are your default settings. As you change them, they go yellow, so you can see how far, if you've made any changes. General, this episode is just going to be on these, and then it will finish with actually getting into the game, and then the next episode will be, I'm going to set the game days to be 30 minutes, so we'll spend the whole day going through how to play, basics of play, surviving, what you need to do to not die. So we'll go through the settings here. Server visibility. Every game can be multiplayer, and this just pops up in the server list. So I set it to friends only, so only people in your Steam list will see your game and be able to join it. You can set a max player if you're going to go public, which is the default setting, but I always go friends. You can put a password on it too. We'll cover the name in a second. So these are your game settings. So your default difficulty. The harder the difficulty, the more damage the zombies, walkers, the undead, the more damage they need before they go down, and the harder they hit. So adventure, if it's your first time playing a zombie game like this, then leave it at adventure. All these settings can be changed when you log into the game. You can customize these, so don't think that you're locked in when you initially create the game. So I would put it up somewhere around, so Insane's the hardest, somewhere around Warrior, Survivor. It's much of a muchness when you start getting up around this level, whether a zombie requires one extra hit or two extra hits. Your 24-hour game cycle, so a full in-game day. This is what the time it takes. So the minimum is 10 minutes. That would be, I haven't actually tried that before. That might be interesting. And 120 minutes is the max. When I play just for fun, I set it as 120 minutes. It just gives you more time to develop the game before the days start progressing. The game will get harder the longer you're alive and the higher your level. So it's an addition of those two dictates what kind of zombies turn up and how tough they are. It's what they call your game stage. So the higher your game stage, the higher the level zombies and the more of those higher level zombies you'll get. But for this playthrough, it's just going to be 30 minutes. Daylight length, that's how much of the 24 hours is your daylight. Minimum is 12 hours. 18 just gives you more time through the day. So I'm going to set it to 18 because that'll give us more time through the day. In the night time, I'll stop recording. I'll just play through the night. Unless there's something specific that we're going to do, I'll just play through the night and mine stone, clay, chop wood, whatever we need, so the days aren't spent. There will be a little bit of the grind through the days, but it's not going to be, I'm going to spend 2 whole days chopping trees down kind of play style. So I'll try and do that at night, just so these videos are a little bit more informative. So blood moon frequency. If you are unfamiliar with the game, it's a zombie apocalypse, and every 7 days there's what they call a blood moon. So when nighttime comes around, which is 10 p.m., the sky goes red, and the zombies all know exactly where you are. So you will get a spawning of zombies, which are under the advanced tab, the number, and they just come for you, and they just spend the night respawning and just coming for you. So the game um, changes from a survival game to like a tower defense. You have to build your home base, or what people call their horde base, to withstand these waves of zombies. So it's survival any other time of the week, but when the blood moon comes, that's when it goes to tower defense style. So spend the week developing a horde base. So blood moon frequency, you can disable blood moon altogether. So if you just want to have a survival game where zombies will be wandering around, you go into a house to loot it, and you might find some zombies. This is what you would go with, but you can give yourself a bit of a challenge and set to blood moon every night. I personally haven't done that yet. I would set it to around 10 days, because as the days go along, you can very easily see what you are up to when a blood moon's coming. Day 29, the next day you're going to get a blood moon. Once you start getting into day 50, 60, 70, unless you're really good with maths, or you've got a calculator on hand, it can be a little bit more difficult to track. You do get a warning, which is this setting down here. We'll cover that in a sec. Blood moon range, that allows you to dictate, is your blood moon coming every 10 days exactly, or 4 days before or 4 days after the blood moon will come. So you don't know exactly when it is. So I would generally go with 10 days flat, or I'll set 7 days with a 4-day multiplier. I did a long playthrough with my daughter, and we set it to 20 days frequency with a random range. I think it was like 7 days, something like that. It was quite good. You just didn't know when the horde was coming, and the frequency counter resets after the blood moon. So yeah, it just mixes it right up. So for this playthrough, I'm going to set it to the default 7 days, and I will turn the range off. Actually, we might no, because it's only 30-minute days. We'll leave it at 7 days. And then your blood moon warning. When do you get the warning? So at the top of the screen, you'll have your day count. Tells you what day you're up to, and then at 8 or 8:30 a.m., if it's a blood moon, that day counter will go from white to red. So at 8:30 in the morning is a blood moon, which is really handy if you have a randomizer on here. So morning, evening. I would go morning. Now the speed of the zombies. You can see in here the default settings. So zombies walk in the day, but as soon as nighttime comes around, 10 p.m., the zombies start running. I didn't realize this when I first started playing. I didn't even know that there was a blood moon when I first started playing, which was really interesting. On day 7 with my, I think it was a 4x4 wooden box house with one chest in there, and my bedroll and a couple of storage crates, and the moon went red, and the zombies came and tore it apart pretty handedly. It was a steep learning curve. Hopefully this guide will assist new players. So through the day, zombies will walk. There are some zombies which don't obey that rule, like the footballer. He's got like the American gridiron clothes and helmet on. He will run all the time. Feral zombies, which are these ones down here, they have their own separate rule. They also have glowing yellow eyes to make them stand out. So if you're using a rifle with a scope on it and you zoom in on a zombie and you see it's got yellow eyes, if you have this speed here set to sprint, it's going to come after you pretty quickly once it detects you. So get onto that as we go. So walking through the day, 10 p.m. comes around, zombie sprint. Feral speed, sprint, and then on a blood moon, zombie sprint, which if you leave the nighttime speed at sprint, shouldn't be any different. Um, so for all speed sprint, blood moon speed sprint, I would generally set nighttime to be jog. Um, when you're at night, it just gives you a little bit more. For me, zombies are your old school zombie movies, like Night of the Living Dead, um, John Romero's zombie movies. That's what I grew up watching. That's what I enjoy. So I've played this many times. I think last time I checked, I had about 1900 hours in 7 days. And there's also a mod, we'll cover that a bit later on, the John Romero mod. And basically, there's no blood moon. Zombies walk all the time. Attacks to anything other than the head do basically nothing. I think it's 1 damage. That's an enjoyable mod. Um, so I would set jogging for nighttime, ferals sprint, and jogging or running for blood moon. That way it's a little bit closer to your traditional zombie movie, but by all means, use any of these settings as you like. But maybe for learning, just try and turn it down a little bit. And as I said, once you get comfortable with it, you can play around with these every time you log in. Persistent profiles, that's just the character that you create when you log out. If you have persistent profiles turned off, you might decide to change your male character to a female character or something like that. It doesn't really do much, I found. The only time I really notice it is when my daughter, who was only 10 at the time, 10 or 11 at the time, she was getting on here playing before she got her own computer, and she made my character female, and I didn't realize it until I got in and talking with a trader, and turned around and my character was a female. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what that setting does. On, off, I don't think it really matters. Your XP multiplier, that dictates how fast you get your XP. The faster you get XP, the higher your level, the more skills and things you can unlock, which is really good. But that also increases your game stage. So I would suggest leaving it at 100% or even dropping it a little bit lower just while you're learning the game, because you don't want to be dealing with some of the mutated zombies or the radiated zombies, some of the special zombies which don't behave exactly like a zombie would. I might get into those in another video. Try and keep this all segmented. So yeah, maybe turning your XP multiplier down a little bit just so you can learn the game and get an appreciation for your survival before you jack it up to 300% and you start getting high tier zombies when you're running around with a wooden bow. Yeah, I'll leave it at 100%. Your advanced settings, so these ones here, player block damage, anything that you attack, so a door, a wall, a pole, the ground, anything that you're attacking is a block. This just dictates how much damage you're doing. The AI block damage is the same, and the blood moon block damage, just for the blood moon night. So player block damage, I would generally do this at 125%. So anything that I'm attacking, it just gets through a little bit faster. The AI block damage, I turn it down a little bit. The reasoning behind that is not to cheat, but when you've got a reinforced concrete wall around your base and zombies start beating on it and getting through it pretty quickly, the realism scale ticks off a little bit. Why a zombie with its bare hands able to get through a reinforced concrete wall in a matter of minutes rather than days or never. So I would turn that down. But then the AI on the Blood Moon, I would leave it 100 or turn up to 125. So I'm going to leave these at normal levels. Loot abundance. So the amount of loot that you get in all circumstances that you find in houses that you loot off zombie bodies. Zombies don't drop loot all the time. They used to. And they would leave a body behind on the ground that you could chop up and farm for bones and rotten flesh. They don't do that anymore. There is a chance, I don't know what the percentage is, but maybe every 30 or so zombies that you kill, it'll drop a yellow loot bag. Now you might find a gun, you might find some bullets, you might find a bit of food or medication, some raw resources, things like that. So the loot is better, but it's not as frequent. So loot abundance, 100%. I would just leave it at that. The loot respawn time, the default setting for that is 30 days. So I never use that setting. I just think if you go into a house in a zombie apocalypse and you loot it, you take all the food out of it, and you loot everything out of the house, 30 days later, it will be restocked with stuff. I just find that um, it's hard to call it unrealistic in a zombie survival game, but I just find that a bit unrealistic. So I always set the respawn time to be disabled. Once you loot a house, it should stay looted. The only time that wouldn't be the case is if someone else comes in there and leaves things. So I just turn that off. Drop on death, everything. This is when you die. You have your backpack that you store your stuff in, and you've got your tool belt or your belt, whatever you want to call it. It's your hotbar, your action bar. Your default setting is you drop everything. You die, you got to make a naked run back to your body to pick up all your stuff. You can't leave it there because it does despawn after a while. I don't remember what that time is because I always run back to get it if I do die. One of the easy modes would be to drop your backpack only. That way your tool belt, where you've got all your weapons and potentially you've got a vehicle stored, when you die you would keep that. Backpack only, I've never used that one. And everything, I used to use that one, but I just found it was easier to leave a tool belt on. Your choice, you play it how you like, but I'm going to go with backpack only. I'm going to go with backpack only, so everything in my backpack will be dropped, but I'll keep what's on my tool belt, where your tools and your weapons are. I also store my vehicles, so if I'm riding around on a push bike or a mini bike, so the vehicles are push bike, mini bike, motorbike, jeep, and a gyrocopter. And as you level up one of the skill lines, you learn how to craft those. You can buy them. I've never found them. But I tend to, when I go somewhere, I pick my vehicle up and I put it on my belt so I know where it is. And there was a bug back in Alpha 15 or something where if you left your mini bike, which used to be the only vehicle, if you left it for too long, there's a chance that it might despawn or fall through the map and be gone. So I just got in the habit to pick it up to make sure I never lost it. Drop on quit, nothing. If you're leaving the game, do you really want to drop your stuff? Same settings as drop on death. I turn that off. I don't see any reason to turn that to any setting. If you're in a multiplayer server, maybe you want to use that, but yeah, leave that off. The blood moon count. Okay, so this is your end of the week tower defense. Your not purpose of the game, but your event that keeps the game interesting. What you build up all week for. Default setting is 8. So when a horde night comes, 8 zombies are going to spawn somewhere in the near vicinity of you. So the game is broken up into chunks. Think of them as, depending on your imperial metric geographic location, a chunk. I'm from Australia, so I would use the metric and say that you've probably got about 500 square meter block of land is a chunk, so about half a kilometer. And the game world is made up of these chunks in a big grid. Somewhere inside that chunk, 8 enemies are going to spawn. Increase them, decrease them. 4 enemies if you are starting out, maybe do 4. See how you go before you start increasing it. So with my playstyle, I always have the zombies set to walk all the time, or at most jog. The ferals, I'll leave a sprint. But because I'm essentially making the game easier by the zombies being so slow, increase the blood moon count to 64. Now this count here is for every player on your server. If you're playing it solo, 64 zombies are going to spawn around you when the blood moon starts. And as you kill them, they will be, a new one will take its place. If you're in a multiplayer game, you're playing with a couple of friends, each player in the server gets this many zombies. So if you're hosting and you're running a computer that's not fairly high end, you might find that you're going to struggle with your performance. 64 zombies for you, 64 for 2 or 3 friends, and you're in a very close area or you're living in the same base. you can have yourself a pretty big swarm of zombies coming through. So play with that setting and find something that works best for you. You will find that when large groups of zombies spawn, you'll get a bit of a performance decrease as they pop up out of the ground, and the game does what it needs to associate all these zombies coming in around you. I play with 64. For my computer, that runs fine. I'm running it's about 3 or 4 month old computer. It's an AMD Ryzen 5 5600X. I've got 16 gig of RAM. I'm running a AMD Radeon RX 6700 XT, so fairly new. It's not a top of the line graphics card, but it runs that quite comfortably with 64 zombies. Enemy spawning, if you want to turn your zombie spawn off, whether you just want to play the game to do building, you don't want to worry about any zombies coming through, you can turn your blood moon off, you can turn your zombie spawning off, and you can craft, chop your trees down, build your farm, build your castle. If you're playing with younger kids that you don't want to have to worry about things like this, then just turn everything off and have fun. Obviously, I'm going to turn that on. Your airdrops, by default, every 3 days, an aeroplane will fly over your chunk. Within maybe 2 or 3 chunks, so fairly close. And it will fly in a straight line, and somewhere along that line, it's going to drop a crate out. It's going to have a parachute and a big plume of yellow smoke, so you can see it for a while. This setting down here, mark airdrops, if you have that on, you'll see on your map exactly where it is until you exit the game. When you come back into the game, that mark won't be there, but the crate still will, so you can find it. I always have that turned off, and I would generally set it to every day. If I'm doing a difficult kind of game, I'll have every day an airplane's going to come. I'm not going to know where it is. If I see it or hear it, you've got to get to it pretty quickly. Otherwise, you just lose sight of it because there's mountains and trees and buildings. So a good tip for that is when you spot it, point your character at it, open your map, and put 2 markings. So where you are on the map, a map pin, and then roughly how far away you think it is, put another map pin so you can see the line that the crate, the airdrop is going to be on. But I'll show you that on another video. So we'll set that to every 3 days. The airdrops can be really useful, particularly in the early game, because they will have ammunition, possibly a gun or a weapon of some type. They'll have medication, they'll have tin food, and there's a chance that they might have a beaker. Beakers are tools that you use in a couple of your stations. They're quite useful. You can buy them, but airdrops are a fairly reliable source for them. So if you see them, don't get rid of them. Multiplayer, only if you're going to be playing with friends. So when I play with a friend, I'll turn down to no killing. I generally play as a front line, heavy armor, hand-to-hand combat, and shotguns, so close range weapons. I don't want a friend sitting behind me, popping shots off with a sniper rifle and taking me out as well. Claim size, when you're playing in a PvP-oriented multiplayer game, you do start the game with what's called a land claim block. You can put it down and another player can't build anything or put down anything inside your claimed area. You do have a dead zone, how far the block reaches, how long it lasts for. If you're offline for 7 days, someone can then come through and put stuff down. The decay on it, health, offline, bedroll, dead zone, bedroll duration, only really a concern if you're playing in multiplayer or you're playing with friends. Pretty much everything other than the player killing, it's more PvP. If you're playing with friends, just turn that to no killing and don't worry about the rest of it. So that's basically it from the settings. Game name, just give it a name so when you go to bring up a save game, this is what you'll see. Something, put in whatever you want to call it, Blood Moon, just some kind of identifying name for yourself. Game world, so the purpose-built map that the developers created was called Naviskane. It's been designed by them with towns, roads, and all that kind of stuff. You can create a random world. We'll get to that in a second. And then in recent, I think it was Alpha 18 or maybe even 19, they have a couple of these other game worlds that are similar to Navezgane, but bigger. I don't think I've even played on them, to be honest. I generally either play with Navezgane or I'll go random world. But there are some other ones that you can play around with. We're going to do random world. You can give it a seed, whatever you want to call it. 1, 2, 3. Gives you this world name. Pick your size, either 8K or 4K. The bigger it is, the longer it will take. You're looking on my machine. The last time I created a world, it took about 4 or 5 minutes. But that was on a 4K map. So if we go 8K, you're probably looking, several minutes for it to generate. We'll do 4K, and I'll start that up, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so it was right on midnight when I started this. It's now just got to the loading screen, and it is 12:03 and about 40 seconds, so about 3.5 minutes, and we're now at the loading screen. As of the start of Alpha 19, they put in these tips. You can use your left and right mouse button just to scroll through. Just some basic tips is handy to for new players. So this is the game world. One of the first things I like to do is hit F8, and you'll see on the far left of the screen the FPS counter. That's just a good indicator of what your computer is going to be doing. The more you increase things like blood moons, random hordes, another thing we'll cover, you'll notice your FPS going down. So keep an eye on it. If you find it's getting too low, so it'll drop from green to yellow to red as you start getting really low on your frames. You might want to turn some of your graphics settings down just to make it a little bit less strenuous on the computer. So I'm not going to do too much more because I want to keep these videos fairly short. But that's essentially it. So I'm going to exit this, go back to the main menu. Okay, so we now have a game. It's ready to go whenever we want to play it. Just come back in, go to continue game. It's here, and you can change these settings. If you find that the game's too difficult, turn the difficulty down, change any of your other options that you set. You're not locked into how the game has been set up from the start. You might like to start off with zombie spawns and blood moons turned off altogether. Play for 20 or 30 days, make yourself a nice castle, enjoy the game, learn how to play it, and then you want to introduce blood moons every night, feral zombies everywhere, sprinting all the time, just to see how your build goes. Yeah, you're not restricted at all. So Alpha 19.6 is not going to be around much longer. Alpha 20 is right around the corner. The Fun Pimps, the developers, are saying potentially in the next couple of weeks. They would like to have it out now, but they do have a list of bugs that they want to get solved before they release it, which is always a good thing. The Alpha 20 update has had quite a lot of work, particularly in regards to random gen. Currently, when you create a random world, you will find a building in the woods with a dirt track going to it. And then a couple of kilometers away, there'll be a full city with a random cabin right next door. It's random in every aspect. You'll find dirt roads connecting large buildings and tarred roads going out to the woods. It's fine and it works well. But Alpha 20, there's going to be a lot of improvements coming. A lot more realism in the way that the game world connects. So towns will connect to each other, buildings will connect via roads and gutters, and there's street signs and street lights, and there's a whole bunch of new buildings. I saw on one of the streams, I think it was like 100 odd new POIs. I think all the zombies now have the high def makeover. There is at least one new zombie. The new zombies do look really cool, and the new random gen looks great. I'm looking forward to giving that a try. I did see in the one of the developer videos that they had a sewer system So inside these towns can spawn a full sewer system. You can get down into it and go through the pipes and whatnot. That would be a pretty interesting place to have a base. They did make in Alpha 17, I think it was. Zombies never used to dig. So the best thing you could do would be make a base underground. I love dwarves. Warhammer, Lord of the Rings, Dungeons and Dragons, dwarves are my thing. Love them. So for me, I could explore my inner dwarf and build full-on kingdoms underground. Spend 150, 200 days just making a very large underground base with tunnels that connected to smaller satellite bases. Alpha 17 came around and the developers saw that everyone just made underground bases to escape the zombies. So they changed that and made zombies attack the ground. They don't dig, but they do crouch down and they start hitting the ground. I'll show you in future episodes that ground has about 200 health per block. When you start getting into stone, you got about 500 health. You get 10 or 15 zombies attacking, they get that attack bonus as well. They can tunnel down to you pretty quickly. So underground bases just stopped being a thing. I still like them, still use them, but predominantly the base is above ground. At least the defensive side of it anyway. So I'm going to wrap this up now, get this video out there, and I'll start on the next episode probably tomorrow. Okay. Hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful. I hope that the season, the series that we do out of this will be useful for new players and potentially some existing players who may not know some of the things that we go through. If it is useful, please leave a couple of comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know you're interested in seeing these. And if you do, I'll talk to you then, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.